Welcome to the Enterprise Fleet Summit. Today we are joined by Tony Williamson, the Director of Business Development and Sustainability at Gage Zero. Welcome to the summit, Tony.
Thank you very much.
I'm excited to get into today because anyone who's been around FreightWaves long enough understands that my deep love of sustainability and all things electric is pretty high. So before we get too far into that, let's get some background on you and kind of how you got started at Gage Zero.
Okay, I been in Gage Zero for actually 9 weeks now. I started April the 1st, and but my background comes from trucking. I've been in the trucking for 39 years. The last 17 years, I was with a major drayage company with a national footprint. But the last 14 years, I spent mainly on sustainability. Our company was able to demonstrate 14 hydrogen fuel cell trucks, Class 8, and 16 battery electric trucks. Those trucks are probably what the OEMs are producing now for the public.
So, most importantly, kind of getting into the meat of everything here today. Obviously, it's the Enterprise Fleet Summit. A lot of enterprise fleets are looking for, different solutions for their fleet. But why is fleet electrification kind of at the forefront of so many conversations right now?
It's because of the push. There's a national push to electrify based off the greenhouse gases to reduce greenhouse gases in the states, and then there's regulatory push from the states in order for each state to have a cleaner air emissions, especially around the ports where Port of LA and Long Beach, there's 25 to 30,000 trucks a day visiting that site. So if you think about all the air emissions and the rubber, air particulates from the tires, that's a lot of particulates in the air that can affect people's health.
I mean that makes complete logical sense of, there's all these regulations coming around, and I for one am not mad about these regulations because selfishly I like clean air to breathe, and I like the earth to be here for a little bit. Call me old fashioned, just kind of like the planet that we live on to not, cease to exist.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have all these regulations and these kind of rules and guidances saying, hey, we need to make a push to electrification, we need to reduce our emissions, et cetera, et cetera. We need to, be more conscious of what we're putting out into the earth and the world. And then you have, on the other hand, I'm this carrier, and maybe I have a couple hundred trucks or 100 trucks. How, and like I am just supposed to be expected to foot the bill to convert them all to electric vehicles. How do you kind of bridge that transition? Like, what have you experienced in that transition phase of, okay, well, we kind of have to do this, but also it's a little expensive, so it's going to take a little bit of time.
Well, switching from I'm gonna say hydrocarbons to zero emission, it takes number one education, and then number two resources. Education, you gotta actually know about the new technology that's out there, and plus you gotta embrace it. Um, um, in the drayage world, they always said that in the drayage industry, the old trucks go there to basically die, meaning that you can have a much longer life than the trucks that's running coast to coast because of the miles that these trucks put on each year. You know, in the drayage, you can put an actual average of anywhere from 20 to 30,000 miles, where when you're going coast to coast, you can do 125 to 150 to 200,000 miles per truck. So you have these old trucks here in the drayage community. And plus, you know, an older truck is cheaper than a newer truck. Um, and then when you look at the resources, these new trucks are coming out. They're three times a day cab, a diesel day cabs. You know, diesel day cabs are around about 150, $160,000 out the door, where these battery electric trucks are coming in 425, 475, 525 and $1,000. So the education around that is to, you know, not run away from it, but say, okay, let me really dive into the TCO, the um, to look and see if I can make this work in my operation, because the regulation is pushing this, and they are going to have to adopt to this new technology, especially in Southern California.
I think that also it's kind of that you have to kind of, if I'm that fleet manager, I have to weigh the balance of, okay, I need to do this. So if I just start kind of phasing out some of the old trucks and getting some new electric ones, but I still maybe have some of those trucks that are only a couple years old still running on diesel. I think that's also kind of a, okay, well, I don't necessarily want to do it. I don't want to spend the money for it, but also if I start working on it now, it's going to be better than in a year or so when this regulation goes into effect. And all of a sudden, me and everyone else are going to have to buy all of this new equipment and get all of this stuff potentially at a higher price because, I'm sure if there would potentially be a shortage or there's not necessarily going to be exactly the models that you want that are readily available. So I think that's also kind of something to sit there and look at and go, ooh, like, can we actually get this accomplished in a reasonable time frame on our timeline versus, okay, these regulations are coming in a month, they're going to be active, we just have to hurry up and buy it all, because I don't feel like that's also a smart business decision either.
Yes, you're correct, because there's a learning curve to driving a battery electric truck. We found this out in 2015. We started demonstrating battery electric trucks. The technology back then, you can only operate those trucks about 2 hours a day because the batteries are completed. That driver would go out, and we would actually follow the truck in a car and take pictures that, oh, we're moving freight with battery electric trucks. In all actuality, we're only using 2 hours. We had to go back, put the truck back at the site, hook up extension cord so we can charge it, and it take anywhere from 14 to 16 hours to charge the early trucks. But now, you got the technology advanced so much that these trucks, we were able to run a battery electric truck within a 30-mile radius of the port, 3 shifts. Now in Southern California, the ports are open 16 to 18 hours a day. So we have to get 2 shifts. So we were able to run a day and a half those trucks. And so the technology is advanced, but you just can't get into a truck and just start driving. You have to talk to your dispatch, because your dispatch got to make sure that the state of charge, SOC, as we say, in the truck can make sure you cover that customer's route. Um, so there's a lot of factors getting in. And then also the driver, it's almost like driving a big golf cart, but you still have to know how to drive that truck, in order to preserve that battery life. So it's education.
Yeah, I mean, the same way that all the drivers sit there and they have all the best tips to get a little bit more miles per gallon and, not just a slow acceleration, you name it, all the stories that we've heard of, oh, this is how you get a little bit better gas mileage. That same thing has to exist for electric trucks. It's just a matter of finding it out, finding your sweet spot. And I mean, I'm sure if you took a driver and put them in 4 different diesel cabs or versus 4 different electric cabs, each cab they would have to kind of get a feel for what it's like. And because yeah, even though maybe it's all diesel or all electric, there's some nuance changes. And it's the same way that you get into a new car as a passenger car, you have to sit there and go, oh, okay, like where are some things in this car, I'm not familiar with it, and just take some time to familiarize yourself.
Exactly.
So we've touched on it a little bit, and that's kind of if I'm a fleet manager or if I'm a trucking company, I'm looking at, okay, well, how am I going to finance this? Where am I going to come up with this money that is going to magically fund all of our electric trucks? Because like you mentioned, sometimes those electric trucks are more expensive, and especially if I have a heavy drayage operation, I can't necessarily, and on the diesel side, I could get away with a older truck, maybe it's something that's a little cheaper, but unfortunately there's not a lot of used electric trucks that people can pull from. So do you kind of have any pro tips or any kind of ideas of where you could even start looking to finance some of these things outside of just hope you made enough money in a down market to make this happen?
Yes. There are subsidies and grants available on the federal level, state level, and also the local level. Um, as a trucking company, currently there's, like I say, all these dollars available to subsidize the price of a EV. Fleets need to take advantage of this now, because some of these subsidies can be up to $250,000. So if you have a truck that's coming in at 375 to 450, that is significant reduces the amount of the cost of that truck. But these subsidies are not going to be around um, much longer. I've been in this field, like I said, 14 years, and there's always been subsidies. But eventually, the subsidies are going to be taken away. And hopefully, by that time, with the production of these trucks, the price would drop down. But still, you got to take advantage. So you got to be an early adopter to the EVs in order to take advantage of the subsidies.
Oh, 1,000%. First of all, I did not know that you could buy a truck for $400,000. That is terrifying. That's like many houses or two, or that's a house. That's a house. That's like a very nice house. Anyway, um, but also more importantly, like you said, the closer we get to these regulations going into place is going to be, you're going to see less of those subsidies, or the subsidies aren't going to be for as much as they were before, because it's going to be for everybody. So shop early, and I like to think of it as a huge coupon that you get.
The early subsidies, you can only get like at a federal level. And then if you want to get state dollars, they wouldn't let you, what we say, stack them. But now these subsidies out there, you can stack them. So you can really significantly drop the price of a EV.
Tony, thank you so much for joining us today. If anyone has any questions on electric vehicles or heavy duty trucks, where can they find you outside the summit?
Well, I am in Los Angeles, California, and my telephone number is 310-892-1441. My email address is tony@gagezero.com, GAGEZERO.com. And I'd be more than happy to pick up the phone and talk with anybody that wants to hear about EVs and also infrastructure. Shoot me an email. Be more than happy to respond.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And stay tuned for the rest of the summit because we have some amazing content coming your way.